9-year-old Rowan Ford vanished from her quiet Missouri hometown in the dead of night. What began as every parent's worst fear soon turned into something far darker. A week later, the search ended in heartbreak. Deep inside a cold, hidden cave, her small body was found. The innocence of a child stolen, her light extinguished far too soon. But the most horrifying truth wasn't where she was found, it was who she trusted. That led her there. A family friend, someone she should have been safe with, someone who shattered that sacred trust in the most unthinkable way. How could such darkness hide behind a familiar smile? How could a child's protection be ignored so completely? Tonight, we uncover the haunting case that shook Missouri to its core. A story of innocence betrayed, justice pursued, and a community forever scarred. This is the story of Rowan Ford. Rowan Damia Ford was born in 1998 in a close-knit corner of southwest Missouri, a place where everyone knew each other by name. From her earliest years, Rowan shone with a kind of light that couldn't be ignored. She was a bright, curious fourth grader, the kind of child teachers remembered long after the school year ended. In class, she was the one who always raised her hand, eager to learn, eager to help. Her teachers spoke of her as gifted, respectful, and full of promise. Her classmates adored her for her kindness. She was the peacemaker, the one who made everyone feel included. Outside the classroom, Rowan loved drawing colorful pictures, singing with her school choir, and spending time with her beloved cat, Sugar. Her laughter carried through the hallways, and her future seemed as bright as the smile she wore every day. Her mother, Colleen Munson, worked the night shift at a local factory. Long hours spent ensuring Rowan had everything she needed. At home, her stepfather, David Spears, was known as a quiet man, often seen around town with his friend, Chris Collings. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary family. A hard-working mother, a bright little girl, a peaceful home. But behind those familiar walls, danger was already waiting. And soon that light, the light everyone loved, would be cruelly taken from the world. It was Friday night, November 2nd, 2007. In the quiet town of Stella, Missouri, the night began like so many others. At around 8 p.m., Colleen Munson left for her night shift at the factory, trusting her little girl Rowan would be safe at home with her stepfather, David Spears. As the hours passed, Spears met up with his close friend, Christopher Collings. The two men drank together, driving the back roads of rural Missouri under dim streetlights. The kind of night no one would have thought twice about. But before dawn broke, everything changed. When Spears returned home the next morning, Rowan was gone. The door was open. Her bed, empty, her favorite cat, waiting by the window. In panic, Spears called police.
911, outside.
My daughter's gone. She's only 9 years old. Within hours, a statewide search was underway. Police, firefighters, and neighbors joined hands, combing through creeks, abandoned wells, and thick woods surrounding the quiet town. Days passed. Hope began to fade. Then, 6 days later, came the discovery that shattered every heart in Missouri. Deep inside a rural sinkhole near the tiny community of Powell, searchers found the body of a child. The search for Rowan Ford was over. But the question haunting everyone, who could have done this, and why? Did the trail lead back to a man she called Uncle Chris? As investigators began piecing together the timeline, cracks started to form in the story told by David Spears and Christopher Collings. Spears claimed he came home to find the door open and Rowan missing, but his version didn't match the evidence. His friend Collings, who had once been eager to help the search, suddenly stopped cooperating with detectives. Behind closed doors, investigators sensed that both men knew far more than they were saying. The truth was darker than anyone could have imagined. While the community searched for Rowan, David Spears already knew what had happened. He knew that his friend, the man his stepdaughter called Uncle Chris, had taken her. But instead of stepping forward, he stayed silent. He chose loyalty to a drinking buddy over loyalty to the child who trusted him. He chose to protect a friendship, not his family. Spears even called the police to report Rowan missing, pretending to be the worried father, while knowing the truth of what his friend had done. But investigators were already suspicious. His timeline didn't fit. His behavior felt rehearsed. And soon the evidence began to tell its own story. During searches of Collings' truck and trailer, police uncovered fibers matching materials from the Spears home and blood traces inside Collings' vehicle. Burned remnants of bedding and rope fragments linked the men directly to the crime. Then came the breaking point. In a tense interview room, Christopher Collings confessed, "I took her. I didn't mean to hurt her. She knew me. I had to stop her from telling." He admitted to abducting Rowan while Spears was away, assaulting and strangling her, then hiding her body deep inside a cave to conceal his crime. The betrayal didn't end there.
Collings confessed to kidnapping Rowan, taking the 9-year-old to his camper, assaulting her, and then strangling her with a rope. The child's stepfather, David Spears, had been partying with Collings the night of the attack. Court documents and the clemency petition said Spears also implicated himself in the crimes. A transcript of Spears' statement to police said Spears told officers that Collings handed him a cord and it was Spears who killed Rowan. Court documents also said it was Spears who led authorities to the sinkhole where the child's body was found.
Spears, instead of protecting his daughter, helped cover up what had happened. He was later charged as an accessory for aiding Collings after the murder. The unthinkable had happened. Two men Rowan trusted most, her stepfather and her Uncle Chris, had betrayed her in life and again in death. The entire town of Stella was left in disbelief. The mask of innocence had finally cracked. And now, justice was closing in. If you're still with us, you're clearly fascinated by this case. Make sure to hit subscribe to All True Crime Network so you never miss our next deep dive. In 2012, nearly 5 years after Rowan Ford's brutal death, Christopher Leroy Collings stood trial in a Missouri courtroom packed with reporters, families, and a community still aching for justice. For days, jurors listened to chilling details that painted a portrait of pure evil. Prosecutors described Collings as a predator fueled by lust and panic, a man who turned on a child who trusted him. They presented forensic evidence, the fibers, the rope, the blood traces, all linking Collings directly to Rowan's final moments. The defense tried to claim his confession had been coerced, that police had pushed him too far, but the evidence was overwhelming. Experts took the stand one after another. A medical examiner confirmed Rowan had been strangled. The marks consistent with a ligature matching the burned rope found behind Collings' home. The jury didn't take long to decide. After just over an hour of deliberation, the verdict was read aloud. Guilty of first-degree murder, statutory rape, and sodomy. Collings showed no emotion as the judge announced the sentence, death by lethal injection. But even behind bars, he continued to fight his fate. Over the next several years, Collings filed multiple appeals, claiming errors in the trial and violations of his rights. Each one was denied. In 2018, he sought executive clemency, a final plea for mercy, from Missouri's governor, Mike Parson. But Parson refused, stating the crime was unspeakable and unforgivable. With that final denial, Collings' fate was sealed. The man who once smiled in family photos and played the role of a friendly neighbor had been condemned by the very system he tried to deceive. Justice at last had spoken, not just for the courts, but for a little girl whose voice had been stolen far too soon. The gavel fell, and with it, a chapter of horror came to a close. Christopher Leroy Collings was sentenced to death, his fate sealed by the same justice system he once tried to manipulate. David Spears, Rowan's stepfather, avoided the death penalty. Instead, he accepted a plea deal, 11 years in prison for child endangerment and for helping cover up the crime. For the people of Stella, Missouri, the sentencing was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but the wound left behind would never truly heal. Behind the cold walls of Bonne Terre State Prison, Collings spent 12 long years on death row. Year after year, he filed appeals, desperate attempts to undo what could never be undone. But on December 3, 2024, the clock ran out. As the needle pierced his arm, the state of Missouri carried out its sentence. Lethal injection marked the final chapter of a man who once betrayed a child's trust.
With executing Chris Collings for the rape and murder of a 9-year-old girl in 2007. It is a case that captured national attention. Fox 2's Caroline Petty is outside of the Carnahan Courthouse in downtown St. Louis with the latest.
The southwestern town of Stella was rocked by the assault and murder of Rowan Ford back in 2007. Tonight, the man convicted of those crimes against the 9-year-old was executed. Christopher Collings, a 49-year-old Missouri man, was pronounced dead by lethal injection at 6:10 p.m. Tuesday night in Bonne Terre.
For Rowan's mother, Colleen Munson, the moment brought no triumph, only tears. "There's no justice that brings my baby back," she said quietly outside the prison gates. And in that silence, under the glow of vigil candles, the small town of Stella remembered a little girl whose laughter once filled its streets. Rowan Ford's story became more than a headline. It became a haunting reminder of trust betrayed, innocence stolen, and a community's enduring fight to ensure her light would never fade again. This case is more than a headline. It's a heartbreaking reminder of how trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. Rowan Damia Ford was only 9 years old, but her story shook an entire nation. A story of innocence lost, a warning of the darkness that can hide behind the most familiar smiles. Her laughter once filled a quiet Missouri town. Now it echoes as a call to protect, to listen, and to never take safety for granted, even within the walls we call home. For every Rowan out there are still children waiting for justice, still families praying for answers, still communities fighting to heal. Tonight we remember Rowan Ford, not for how her story ended, but for the light she brought into the world while she was here. You've been watching All True Crime Network. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we bring you gripping true stories that reveal the truth behind the darkness. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.